I promised to do a video a week, and I was working on one that was really important. But then the election happened, and I got sidetracked by a number of things. I'm sorry. And then I saw a video of renowned imbecile and toddler in a man's body, Vivek Ramaswamy, talking about the Department of Education. And everything he said were disguised as facts, but were setting up his argument that the country could save $1 trillion if we eliminated that department. So I felt compelled to speak up now. You guys should know my bias. I voted my conscience in this election, a third-party candidate, because I hate bullshit. I dislike stupidity, but I hate ulterior motives. Ramaswamy, Trump, Harris all have ulterior motives. Now, let me start off by saying that I'm no fan of the Department of Education at all. The educational system in general needs serious changes. I worked as a teacher in primary education, in secondary education, and both as an instructor as well as an administrator in the higher education system. So I know a little bit about the problems. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, I want to listen to what Trump said in 2023 as part of his platform. And now, I'm going to tell you this. If you're hearing this for the first time and you voted for Trump, you did not vote your conscience. You voted for an image. You voted for what you thought he represents. You did not know, if you did not see this, you did not know specifically what he's talking about, what he wants to do. So you did not vote your conscience because it was not educated. Now, I'm not going to shame you. I hope you get it next time, if there is a next time. But let's listen to this. Before we decode piecemeal here what President-elect Trump has to say about his plans for education, please take a minute to like and subscribe to the channel. Not only does it help out with the YouTube algorithm, but it keeps me motivated to make more content like this. It costs you nothing to subscribe. Please hit that button. Okay, this might seem weird, but I want to start with the end of his speech, because what he says is pretty significant and it really needs to be dealt with. So let's listen to that first, and we'll decode what he says. Here we go.
For every American child. And one other thing I'll be doing very early in the administration is closing up the Department of Education in Washington, D.C., and sending all education and education work and needs back to the states. We want them to run the education of our children because they'll do a much better job of it. You can't do worse. We spend more money per pupil by 3 times than any other nation, and yet we're absolutely at the bottom. We're one of the worst. So you can't do worse. We're going to end education coming out of Washington, D.C. We're going to close it up, all those buildings all over the place, and you have people that in many cases hate our children. We're going to send it all back to the states. Thank you very much.
Okay. All those people who hate our children. Listen, it's a Freudian slip that he's talking about all those big, beautiful buildings. What is he going to do with them? That maybe to him they look like money makers. I don't know. But okay, listen. Oh, there's some big issues with what he's proposing here. That's going to make education worse in many states, not better. What I want you all to understand, this is my promise here making this video. What he's proposing here are not solutions to the problems that exist in education. It's about control, and it's about cultural, religious, and ahistorical indoctrination. Okay? And so notice this ending, that he's going to close the Department of Education in DC to send functions back to the states. Now, he says the United States outspends any other country by 3 times, and we're at the bottom of the educational outcomes strata. Okay, well, that's complete bullshit. We're one of the worst, he says. His math is probably a product of it. Now, let's get into the details, because we have details on this. United States spends a combined $18,614 per student per year. Okay, now that's in 2022, 2023. And that's for primary and secondary education, so it's elementary up to high school. Now, the OECD indicators Education at a Glance publication, and that is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. It's basically the developed countries of the world. Now, they say on average, those countries spend $14,000 per pupil per year on primary and secondary. Okay, that's less than $18,600 some odd dollars that the United States spends. Sure. But that masks a lot of really important data, okay? For example, Luxembourg spends $30,000 a year per pupil, okay? $30,000. We've got Denmark, and we've got Austria also outspend us. Iceland outspends us. Here's another country as well that outspends us, spending about $20,000 per pupil. Norway. All of those countries have significantly better educational outcomes. Now, there are another aspect of this would be the other side. Why does it come down to 14? Well, you have countries like Mexico that really spend very little on their students. You've got really high class sizes in Mexico and some of the other countries that spend very little money on their students. Norway, all the Scandinavian countries basically have a very low student to teacher ratio, which actually helps students learn. If you've ever been in a classroom that has a large number of students, it's very distracting. There are a lot of misbehaviors that come up. It's very difficult for students to focus and concentrate. So it's masking, this data here is masking that some countries really outspend the United States on primary and secondary. It also masks the fact that the European countries include pre-primary school. So preschool, basically. They include preschool in their primary school funding. We don't. So it's another example of why they have better educational outcomes. They're actually sending kids to school earlier. We have a really big, early childhood education problem and childcare problem in this country. A lot of kids are left at home with nothing to do. They're stagnant. They go into kindergarten, they don't even know how to behave. Much less know the alphabet. All right. Now, the only place where the United States outspends all the other countries, and maybe this is what he's talking about, is on higher education. That's college. There's a very specific reason for that. And by the way, the United Kingdom spends just as much as we do on college. Now, that's an aside, but the point is, I want to read you parts of a book chapter I wrote about higher education. Now, I was invited back in 2012 to write an article for a book about emerging roles in librarianship. A friend of mine was putting it together and editing it. And at the time, the position I was in, which was called the assessment librarian position, was pretty new. And they wanted me to write for it because I did a lot of work in that field as assistant director at Wayne State University, as well as an assessment librarian at Michigan State University. Now, so I did some research and I wrote my research. Now, they didn't include it in the book. They said it sounded too angry. And I'm laughing because it was angry. But everyone should be angry about what goes on in higher education. It directly relates to the problem of costs and problems with debt that we're experiencing today. So I'm not going to read the whole thing. The chapter is 14 pages long, but I'll get to the bottom and nitty gritty of it. Not only did I discover in my research there was a lack of agreement about the definition of assessment in that kind of a role, but the role itself is unnecessary. And this is what I wrote. The assessment position uses the baseline skills of the administrator of that department, but the administrators largely don't have those skills, or they choose not to use them. So they don't measure their results. In fact, there's no assessment requirement at the university level or accountability requirement at the university level that looks to performance and efficiency in any program. If the program spends their budget, that program is going to get that budget and perhaps a small percentage increase the next year, accounting for whatever inflation is, whatever the university has at their disposal. So the administrators who are in that position, through not skills, but bureaucratic appointment and political maneuvering, waste a lot of money. I've seen it personally. I've witnessed it firsthand with many different administrators, directors. Okay. They waste the money, so they spend the budget, and they never truly measure any significant results. Therefore, they are incentivized to promote waste. And I was always under the impression, and I made it a point to say, we need to bring costs down for our customer, who are the students. And you hear that, Dean Yee? Anyway, no one listened, and status quo prevailed. If these directors had any actual integrity, any actual skills, or intelligent enough to do their job, which they are not, mostly, we wouldn't have this bureaucratic, administrative waste that we have today. Now, how does this equate to Trump's plan? Well, if he's going to eliminate the Department of Education itself, it's going to have more negative consequences than positive. And you might say, Joe, you basically said there's so much waste and it needs true assessment and accountability. And you're right, it absolutely does. I believe it 100%. But listen, assessment is about systematically collecting data so we can describe the actual outcome of a program or service in order to derive some sort of strategic intervention. All right? A strategic, thoughtful plan in how to improve outcomes. I guarantee you 100%, this plan here, this 10-point plan that we're about to listen to, is not based on any factual evidence at all. So let's get into this 10-point plan, and we're going to break it down one at a time. Here we go.
Here are 10 key ideas that will power our movement for great schools. First, we will respect the right of parents to control the education of their children.
We will respect the right of parents to control the education of their children. Okay, if we're to analyze the language of this, it's going to come down to what he means by respect. How is respect actualized in the context of education? I respect a parent's right to control the education of their children too. My daughter, I have a kid. I want to be able to have, some say in her education. I'm not going to say I have the absolute right to control it, because there's some things I don't know. Right? I don't know. Should she know trigonometry as a freshman in high school, or sophomore in high school? Right? Should she be getting into pre-calc as a junior? At what reading level is acceptable for a fifth grader, for example? I don't know that information, so I'm trusting the experts in the field of education to be able to guide the pacing of her education. So, listen, on the other side, hey, if you want to take it to the extent where parents can opt out of learning a subject, maybe that's reasonable. I don't know. Maybe you want to opt out of math because, it makes you as a parent feel inadequate that you don't know how to multiply and divide fractions. All right, opt your child out of math. There's going to be field workers who are necessary, right? Picking apples or something. So hey, you're setting your kid up fantastically to pick those bushels of apples. Well, unless the farmer wants the apples counted. So they have to find another job, I guess. I mean, what does it mean when he says respect? And how does that relate to school funding? I mean, right now, part of school funding are educational outcomes. So, and that's measured through the use of standardized tests. So, let's say, the parents have control of their kids' education. Half the kids in the school opt out of English language arts. Standardized test season comes up. They've got to take that test. They all fail. How does that impact that school's, funding? Well, obviously it's going to be, if it's continued in that manner, it's going to be negatively impacted. So there's going to be some problems here. And they're going to have to come up with a whole new result system or measurement system for funding, I guess. Do you think they have a plan at that detailed level? Okay. Here's the bigger issue about this. Should public education fill the wants of an individual family? Or should its purpose be to help fulfill the collective needs of society? In order to answer that question, you have to look at the word public. I mean, is public one family, or would public mean a collective of families? Listen, I would say obviously it's the latter, right? So serving individual needs of a family in terms of education would be what private schools are for and what homeschooling's for. And no one is saying that people don't have the right to send their kids to private or homeschool them. Getting rid of the Department of Education, a centralized system of putting out standards, is not going to help the public at large. All right, let's get to number 2 here.
Second, we will empower parents and local school board to hire and reward great principals and teachers, and also to fire the poor ones, the one whose performance is unsatisfactory. They will be fired. Like on The Apprentice, you're fired.
Okay. All right. So we are going to empower parents and local school boards to hire and reward great principals and teachers and fire the poor ones. Okay. They already do that. All right. That's the local school boards are elected by the parents and the public, and they give the principals the power to hire teachers, discipline teachers, and ultimately reward or fire teachers. What the hell are you talking about? Now, it's kind of laughable because he actually says to hire great principals and teachers. Now, principals do that work. So what are we going to do? Eliminate school principals so parents and local school boards can discipline and hire teacher. What are you saying? It already happens. Are you trying to tell everybody that you want to put the school boards and the parents directly in control of evaluating teachers? That's a scary thought. Why is it scary? Well, because, sorry, most of you guys, you should be humble enough to know that you do not know what happens in the classroom. You don't know the teaching methods that are involved. You don't know the lesson planning that's involved. You don't know the scaffolding that's involved. You don't know the pacing that's involved, okay? Not to mention the content that's involved. If you don't know that, and also you aren't directly witnessing the teaching, you have no basis in how to evaluate that particular teacher. So what are you going to base your observation, your evaluation on? You know, their way they look, the way they sound, who knows? That's pretty scary shit. Sorry. That's just really scary. And a lot of things can go wrong with that. Now, in addition, most teachers are contract employees. They work with a union. They work in the context of a union. They're collective bargaining agreements. They have rights. So what's Trump going to do with this empowerment of parents and local school boards to evaluate and discipline these teachers? Are you going to get rid of the unions? Are you for that? Oh, union teachers make too much money. It's unbelievable how much money they make. They don't make shit, Jack. Get your head out of the ass. Do some research. Teachers don't make enough money for all they have to do. And trust me, they don't get the entire summer off. So much of that is spent professional development, required professional development, days and days of honestly BS that they're forced to go through. Their days are taken up with volunteer efforts for the school, for preparing the classroom for the next year, and lesson planning. It's actually ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, the sheer amount of work the teachers do, and they don't get paid much. I'm telling you, less than, by and large, the median income. I'm going to try to be calm. Try to be calm here. Let's listen to number 3.
Third, we will ensure our classrooms are focused not on political indoctrination, but on teaching the knowledge and skills needed to succeed. Reading, writing, math, science, arithmetic, and other truly useful subjects.
In saying, ensure classrooms are focused not on political indoctrination, he's insinuating that currently students are or teachers are politically indoctrinating students. Okay, now I'm going to tell you straight up, I've witnessed this. Does it happen all the time? I don't know. I personally witnessed it. In fact, when I was teaching middle school ELA, a lot of the students would complain that the social studies teacher was just going on and on talking about Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad. And I had to argue against that. Not everyone, there's not one person in this world that's all bad. And there are things that he did that were good. Now, and I had to bring those up, and I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty details. This is all about this plan for education. But I experienced this indoctrination. But that's my experience. What he is talking about is the question. What is political indoctrination to him and whoever's coming up with this education plan, and whoever's going to institute whatever regulations and oversight in the particular community. How will that be interpreted in the context of teaching? This is an important thing to think about because there are a lot of nuances when it comes to teaching. It's present in the books that we read for language arts. It could be a lot of these things could be interpreted in many different ways, depending on how you look at it. History, social studies, and other subjects. Here's the thing. If the observer is already hyper politicized, what they're hearing from a teacher is going to be hyper politicized because that's their bias already. Even if it's from verifiable sources, even if it's objective information, when you're trying to develop critical thinking skills in children, it's absolutely essential that you explore, well, facts, but facts from multiple different points of view. And if you censor or edit out a specific fact or specific point of view, you're only going to allow a certain train of thought. Well, if you're only allowing a certain train of thought, you're not learning anything. You're only confirming your own bias. That's indoctrination. Hello, MSNBC viewers, Fox viewers. I'm talking to you. OAN, Newsmax. God forbid, go out there and get some other information. Challenge yourself and test yourself, learn and grow. This perpetual reinforcement of your own bias isn't helping anyone. It will never help a kid. So what is he talking about in terms of political indoctrination? Is it saying that slavery existed? Japanese internment camps, what, you can't talk about that stuff? Well, I mean, sorry, they're facts and they need to be explored using multiple points of view. But hey, well, we can't talk about racism because you're going to make people feel bad. What? That's not education. That is indoctrination. Okay, number 4.
We will teach students to love their country, not to hate their country like they're taught right now.
What the? We will teach our children to love our country, not hate their country like they're being taught right now. Okay. You can teach them to love their country through action much better than you can through words. How about if we had a fair and just economic system or penal system or, justice system, education system? I think people would respond pretty well for that fairness and love their country. That's a good way to teach it. Now, how else are you going to teach it? Straight up, what he just said right there is some big brother shit. It should not be tolerated. Wow. Criticizing and even hating the bad shit that your country does or has done is the most American thing that you can do. It's a God-given American right, bro. It's like, hey, that's why we have the First Amendment. If you don't like then don't ever say anything about freedom of speech again. Okay? It is up to teachers to foster that critical thinking, that contrarian testing, the Socratic method. And some of that involves looking at your country from different perspectives and recognizing when bad decisions were made. This country is not all good. All right? Sorry. There's a myriad number of examples of true vileness in history and current affairs as well. And if you can't question that, because you'll be called not a lover of this country, well, that's not American. That's anti-American. Wow. God. All right, let's bring in number 5 here.
Fifth, we will support bringing back prayer to our schools. Sixth, we
will support bringing back prayer to our schools. I'm personally really excited and happy about this. Why not? Let's do it. Let's bring back prayer. It's like I'm wondering how we're gonna get the space for that kind of prayer. I mean, you got to think the Wiccans are gonna need altars, right, for their herbs and idol worship. Muslims are going to need more space, to kneel and to worship. Buddhists will need some space to meditate. Satanic circles, or what are they called? Pentagrams, that's a lot of space for those things. Wait. Do you think he's talking about just Christian prayer? Are you good with that? What if we have one whole class with just all Christian prayers, and the kids have to mandatory pray, and you're not Christian? People have to pack up and leave the country because they don't believe in your religion. Is that what you want? Is your belief system so weak that you can't tolerate someone else believing something different? It's interesting to me, those who think that Christian nationalism is the way to go, and they say, well, our founding fathers, our country was founded on Christian nationalism. It was not. If that's what you believe, you need to go and read your history, because most of our founding fathers, most of the big names anyway, were deists. And in case you don't know what that means, and that's okay, deism is believing in God, not necessarily a specific one, but deism is believing in a deity, founding that belief system out of logic rather than spirituality. So one of the reasons why our founding fathers kept religion out of our Constitution, or out of our state, I guess you could say, is because they wanted to have a plurality of beliefs. They believed that was strong. It would make the country stronger, because they were deists, not Christians. If they were Christian nationalists, trust me, they would have written Christianity into the Constitution. Check your facts, check your history. On that one, you're wrong. And if you want prayer in school, well, I'd say, you pretty much need to have everybody allowed their own religion in school. And if you can't tolerate that, well, you are the Puritans that need to be kicked out of the country, just like the Puritans were kicked out of Europe. All right. Let's get to number 6 here.
Sixth, we will achieve schools that are safe, secure, and drug-free, with immediate expulsion for any student who harms a teacher or another student.
Oh, wow. All right. So we need to achieve schools that are safe, secure, and drug-free, with immediate expulsion for any child that harms a teacher or another student. That's big. That's big. All right, so listen, schools today are not soft on misbehavior. They were when I was young. A lot of us got away with all kinds of stuff. Chances are, if you're watching this, you did too. School administrators, police, they use their better judgment, and they let a lot of things go. Now, I even remember a friend of mine, I saw him in the hallway, huge commotion. I missed the fight, but I saw him. He came up to me, he's like breathing heavy, his blood dripping from his fists, right? Just beat the crap out of another kid in our class. And he got a 3-day suspension. Now, immediate expulsion is a pretty quick and convenient way of messing up someone's life. Not only the kid, but the family. And the poor kid probably just going through some hormonal changes, or didn't have preschool to learn how to adjust, to difficult personalities. So this zero tolerance shit, it's failed decades ago. The resulting repression, emotional repression in these kids, not only that, but physical repression. You ever been to an urban school? It's like a prison. You gotta get buzzed in, buzzed out, cameras everywhere, security, metal detectors. And that's a pretty stifling and scary environment for kids. Is that really what we want for our kids? It could be argued that kind of environment is what fosters the school shootings that we've had. Now it's like a vicious cycle. Let's double down now, on it. Let's just have armed guards in every classroom. Like, when does it end? I think we need to refocus on this whole immediate expulsion thing. I mean, focus more on having a just system for these kids. Now, I'm not saying that kids who harm a teacher or repeat offenders shouldn't be dealt with. I don't believe that. But the zero tolerance stuff, it's just too much. All right, let's move on to 7.
7th, we will give all parents the right to choose another school for their children if they want.
Okay. I mean, give all parents the right to choose another school for their children if they want. It's like basically a school of choice. And I don't really support school of choice because of the way funding is distributed to the different schools. There are some serious problems with that. But I think if we make it just, it could be an equitable system within reason, right? I mean, I can only imagine 10,000 kids trying to get into the one good school in their area and then getting accepted and then demanding busing from 20 miles away. It's like, wait a minute, there's got to be some limits. So do they have a specific plan with the details all set? Well, no, because they want to take this and put it all to the states. That's a tremendous burden. It's not worth it. Okay, let's move on to 8.
School choice. 8th, we will ensure students have access to project-based learning experiences inside the classroom to help train them for meaningful work outside the classroom.
Okay, meaningful work outside the classroom. Training for meaningful work outside the classroom. Well, what's meaningful work? I mean, this already happens to a point. I mean, teachers are required to start building in project-based learning experiences. It's in every single one of their curricula, okay? Depending on what age they... I mean, they actually start at kindergarten working with other students. So I don't know what the hell he's talking about, except he's saying meaningful work experiences outside the classroom. What's meaningful work experiences? I mean... Some of these states want to put middle schoolers in meat processing plants. I mean, is that meaningful work? What do? Start knife sharpening lessons in 5th grade, so by 7th, 8th grade, they can, slice up a hog? I mean, really, I don't know what they mean. I'll tell you that 70% of our manufacturing jobs have gone overseas. I don't know if that would be considered meaningful work. Most of our economy is moving, rich people moving around money and real estate. So is meaningful work creating a bunch of real estate agents? How are they going to get trained? What are they going to get trained for? You ship out a lot of the leisure and hospitality jobs by, kicking people out of the country. Is meaningful work folding bed sheets in a hotel, vacuum cleaning hotels? There won't be migrant labor, for picking fields. Is that meaningful work? What are you talking about? Are you planning on some trade, like to invest heavily in a new industrial economy? Let's move on to number 9.
Ninth, we will strive to give all students access to internships and work experiences that can set them on a path to their first job. They're going to be very, very successful. I want them to be more successful than Trump. Let them go out and be more successful. I will be the happiest person in the world.
More successful than Trump. Nothing will make Trump more happier than your child being successful. Well, he's lying. Because let me tell you something. If you don't already know this, no one will become successful or get rich by trading their time for money as a wage employee. No one. People get successful in a number of different ways. Trump did it using passive income. So, he was a millionaire by the time he was, 8 or 9 years old, because he was getting paid a lot of money since he was 3 years old. He was a millionaire by the time he was 8 or 9. Then he got a large influx of cash as loans from his dad. Then his dad died, and he got an infusion of cash from his inheritance. And he used a lot of that money, to invest in real estate. What is real estate? Well, when you rent out real estate, that's passive income. All right, you can gouge the tenants with high rents, and you get your income. All right. Then he used a lot of that equity to buy casinos. Now he ran them into the ground, but that's, he was gouging people through their gambling addictions. He avoided paying creditors and contractors with 6 bankruptcies. I mean, rinse and repeat. Okay? Now, if all these things are hurting your feelings, I'm sorry you have problems with the fact. In a way, I kind of admire him for that. I mean, it's morally bankrupt, but it worked, and he worked within the system to make this happen. Now, he pissed off a lot of contractors and people he owed, but he doesn't give a shit about that. He's got the millions. So he pays his lawyers to defend him, and he doesn't have to pay him back. I mean, is that kind of the success that you want your kids to have? Morally bankrupt, money is everything kind of attitude? Maybe. I mean, working in middle-class families, we're always told that if you work hard and you played by the rules, that you'll make it, all right? And that's not true. Trump made it. He proved it's bullshit. All right. In all fairness, you can become successful by innovating a product or need or inventing something. Okay. What do you need in order to do that? Well, you have to have creativity, critical thinking skills, right? What happens when you're not getting that kind of education? So I hope your parents don't pull you out of any important classes, because you might end up reading a brief history of time, but Jesus said that the universe was only created 10,000 years ago. You're screwed. Sorry, But on top of that, all right, you need a tremendous amount of luck. I mean, you might end up running into, I don't know, let's say Mark Zuckerberg, who screwed over the co-creators of Facebook. How about Bill Gates screwing over the co-creators of Microsoft? How about Elon Musk, who didn't invent PayPal? he took it over. So you need good luck, critical thinking skills, creativity, innovative attitude, and good lawyers. All right. That could be another key to success. But okay, in all fairness, I agree with the point that schools need to bring back alternative education programs surrounding auto mechanics, wood shop, for craftsmanship, carpentry, and other trades. I think that's vital to the success of future generations. We're in the service economy. A lot of it is servicing the older generation. Boomers are going to start to die off, but there's a huge shortage of service workers in the trades. So eventually, if we start training now, we're already getting a little bit late in the field. A lot of the boomers, I'm sorry to say, they're going to start dying off en masse the next 2 to 5 years. So if you have an apprenticeship of 5 years, just catching the tail end of that. So we invest a whole lot of money. You're not going to be servicing much. So act fast, act now. But I agree, we need to bring that back into schools. But here's the thing. What party do you think was responsible for cutting the funding for most of these programs? Think about it. Honestly. Okay, we're on number 10? Let's see.
10th, we will ensure that all schools provide excellent jobs and career counseling so that high school and college students can get a head start on jobs and careers best suited to their God-given talents. This is how we will ensure a great education for every American child.
Okay, so ensure all schools provide excellent jobs and career counseling. Okay, yeah, a lot of them already do. But here's the deal. I'm not talking about college programs here. So, career counseling is one thing, and providing excellent jobs, jobs counseling. That's all fine and good, but there's this problem with churning out. The colleges churn out diplomas after diplomas, degrees after degrees. They don't care if the market can't handle the number of degrees. Look at what happened with the lawyers in the 90s and 2000s. Lawyers, entry-level lawyer might be making, 65 to 80,000 a year when they started. By the time of the mid 2000s, starting rates were 45,000. I'm sure they really appreciated and thanked their colleges for turning out, all those degree programs. How about personally, library and information science? That program they churned out so many. You can't find a job in library science unless you get extremely lucky. Applicants are into the hundreds for every job. All right. Now, if you want to go to Antarctica, you got it made. What's the accountability for these colleges churning out these programs? The big business colleges. That is what's driving costs up to, $36,000 a year. Colleges taking the money, putting into their endowment, creating these new graduates and creating additional credential inflation. If you haven't seen my video on credential inflation, I'm going to post a link to it right here. Please check it out. All right, let's end this rather long video. It's important that everybody understand these 10 key things that the Trump administration plans to do to the Department of Education is not well thought out. And it reflects ideology much more than fact. The ideology is flawed and it's going to have negative consequences on childhood education and educational outcomes nationwide. Poor districts are going to become even less educated than they are now, resulting in decreased opportunities for success than the kids have now. Not more. Maybe that's what they want. the less education you have, fewer opportunities you have, the more entrenched you are, and with the less means of escaping your life situation. That is a great way to control a population. So if that's what you're interested in, you must really support this idea. Personally, I don't. Although there are many changes that need to be made in the higher education system and education system throughout, okay? This is not the right way to do it. And I haven't even gotten into financial aid and how the Department of Education performs these vital functions and how the states might take them over. I can only imagine the financial burden that the state education systems are going to have for that to continue. So how is that going to impact colleges? It can be very interesting. I think it's going to destroy them. And maybe I have no problem with that because higher education needs, the colleges and universities need a reckoning. I don't think this is the right way to do it, but they need one. So it's going to be interesting to see. That's a completely different video. So I'm going to let you go here. Until later, stay safe. Take care.